So let's talk about the EV mandate. This Trudeau-era fantasy is still being pushed forward by the Liberals. Under this policy, the sale of new gas-powered vehicles will be banned by 2035. Starting in 2026, just months from now, manufacturers will be forced to meet EV sales quotas or pay penalties up to $20,000 per vehicle. Vehicles that don't comply. Who pays for that? Not the Prime Minister. He doesn't even buy his own groceries. No, it's working Canadians. People who need their vehicles for work, not for show. People who drive F-350s, not Teslas. Let me walk you through what that means on a farm. Grain elevators used to be 12 miles apart because that's how far a horse and wagon could travel in a day. But today, grain has to be trucked 30, 60, 100 miles or more because local rail lines have been torn up or left to rot. The only way to move that grain now is by truck and trailer, and not the kind that you plug into a wall outlet. Let's look at some numbers. $130,000 for a service truck, $350,000 for a basic, $350,000 for a basic tractor, over $1 million for a four-wheel drive tractor, $1.3 million for a combine, and these are just, the base models. There's no electric replacement for that equipment, none. And yet this government wants to regulate it out of existence. One regulation, and you can make that entire fleet obsolete overnight. That's not policy, that's economic destruction. Every part of life on the land depends on engine-driven machinery. That is what took farming from a family feeding a few dozen people to that same farmer today feeding hundreds of thousands. That's the scale we're talking about. And now this government wants to pretend you can swap out diesel-powered combine for an electric toy with a 3-hour charge time. And just pray it doesn't die before the frost hits. Let me tell you something about real farming. We don't get to pause and recharge when it's minus 20 and the cows need to be fed. We don't get a do-over if we miss the seeding window or can't finish harvest before the first snow. We refuel in 10 minutes, not 3 hours, because out here, range anxiety isn't an inconvenience, it's survival. Now, the Liberals will say, don't worry, we'll build a charging network. Really? Then you better start fast, because your own report says you'll need 679,000 charging ports by 2040, and right now you got 30,000. You're already 95% behind schedule, and the policy hasn't even kicked in yet. On top of that, we would need to double the grid capacity, a 30-year project at best estimates. And what about cost? Natural Resources Canada says it will take over $300 billion to prepare for this so-called gas-free future. That's roughly $11,500 per vehicle on the road today, a hidden tax on every Canadian driver on top of the $20,000 coercion fine. And while this government pushes its fantasy, EV sales are collapsing. After federal Quebec subsidies were paused, EV registrations dropped by over 40% in early 2025. Auto trader and dealership groups have reported declining interest for years while inventories pile up and sales slow down. So what's the plan? Force EV quotas. Slap 20,000 on car companies, then pretend there's a consumer demand while prices skyrocket and unsold stock collects dust on the lot. GM and Ford are begging the government to scrap the mandate. Toyota's warning people don't want to buy what the Liberals are forcing them to buy. Even in Europe, where green ideology runs deepest, is hitting the brakes. Germany and Italy are demanding carve-outs. Farmers are protesting by the thousands. In the United States, several states are already delaying or scaling back their mandates. But here in Canada, no. Canada's going full speed off the cliff because ideology matters more to this Prime Minister than the people who actually keep this country alive. Madam Speaker, let me be very clear and dispel a myth held by many of my Liberal friends across the aisle. I support innovation. I support energy alternatives. And I support real choice in the market. The agriculture and energy industries are some of the earliest adopters of new technology. I should know, I was in the middle of it. But when it actually makes sense. GPS-guided equipment operating down to the millimeter. Precision ag that conserves water, fertilizer, and pesticide. Daily satellite imaging to monitor field health, automated drilling rigs powered by AI. The people I'm speaking about don't need government to force them in the future. They pull this technology into their businesses at the right time, in the right way, no mandate, no federal handout, no Liberal intervention required. Madam Speaker, there's nothing green about wrecking Canadian agriculture. There's nothing progressive about taking away the tools that built this country. And there is nothing just about a transition that bankrupts farmers and truckers just to hit a government quota. This isn't a climate plan, it's a government knows best plan. A central planning fantasy dreamed up by people who've never seen a -30 morning or changed a set of hydraulic hoses in the dark. We are witnessing a deliberate dismantling of the Canadian economy dressed up as environmental virtue, and I will not stand for it. I will fight this EV mandate. I will fight for the people who get up before dawn and keep working long after the sun goes down. I will fight for Alberta, and I will fight for common sense, because if we lose this battle, if we let them take the diesel out of our fields and the gas out of our trucks and the independence out of our lives, we won't be a free country anymore. We'll be an experiment. And I didn't come to this chamber to watch Canada become a failed one. Thank you.